Hey guys, it's Nathan from the Kentucky Cycling YouTube channel. Welcome to the next Kentucky Cycling Connection Series interview. I'm happy to introduce my guest today, who is Denile Hill, who is the director of the Kentucky Interscholastic Cycling League, or KICL. Denile, welcome back to the channel.
Hi, Nathan. How are you?
Doing good.
Good.
Denile, it's been almost 2 years ago, back in March of 2021, when we sat down together and talked about the creation of the KICL, which is part of the National Interscholastic Cycling League, or NICA. During that interview, we talked a lot about KICL's designation at that time as an emerging league and what that meant. And we also learned a lot about NICA and how someone goes about forming a club or a team. So I'll include a link to that interview for anyone who wants to go back and kind of dig into those kind of details in case they're interested in that kind of thing. This fall, I actually had the opportunity to go down and do a trail gnome tour with Steve Beckett, who, along with you, I believe, were one of the league's co-founders, and it was excited to hear from he and Vince Carmen about the growth of the league over the last 2 years. So with the start of another exciting year for KICL on the horizon, I really wanted to take this opportunity to get a KICL update so that we can share that with everybody. And so to start out this interview, I just wanted to take a few minutes to invite you to reflect and tell us a little bit about how things have changed with KICL over these last 2 years.
Good. Wonderful. We have certainly grown. You know, they say the train has left the station. It has left the station. Without Steve Beckett and our board, who really lifted this project, there's no way we would be up and running, let alone we're really quite on track. So thanks to all their work and dedication.
I know that you and a great many others have put in a lot of time and energy to develop the league, and I believe it's correct to say that no one's getting paid for this work, correct? Or
Correct. That's
okay,
right.
all right. So I know it's a lot. So with volunteers work of this nature, it's often really a labor of love. Maybe there's more of an emotional paycheck that you get out of this of sorts. Over the past 2 years, are there any stories that you've either heard about or experienced with during your time with the league that you found particularly rewarding that you'd be willing to share with us?
Oh, I mean, so first of all, you say that, and I'm kind of surprised. I'm like ready. My tears are on the edge of my eyes right now because there are endless stories. And it's not just like about feel good. It's real stuff. You are impacting the lives of real people, and you're of service, and that's why we're here, right? And if we're serving kids, which means we're serving their families, which means we're serving the larger communities. I mean, I don't know of another youth development sports series that does that in quite the way that we can do it. So the thing I always tell people is, we all kind of naively thought this was going to be about mountain biking. It really is just like that's just such a small part of everything. So, there was a young girl last year that hadn't finished a race. And when she finished her first race and came across that line, I can't even tell you the cheers that went up and the smile on her face, right? The confidence. So we talk about racing a lot with NICA, but it's again that's like a fifth of what we do. And it was not that the kid. It's not about the podium. We're so proud of our kids that podium. They work really hard, but it's the other stuff. Those moments when you look into a tent and you see a whole family together, just goofing around, just playing, or there's a bunch of kids running around acting like kids. We have so many places for them to just play when they're not riding their bikes, and it's just kind of endless things like that when you're in the middle of this really busy moments, when you lift your head up and you look and you go, okay, last year during one of our events, you get really busy. And Steve and I were standing kind of walking in and out of the back of the trailer, and Ralph Jennings, who's was one of our original founding board members, and he's still on our board, stopped us both. He said, "Y'all stop for a minute and just turn around and look." And when you take that in that moment, those families together outside having fun, no pressure, really, then you know that you're doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know you're doing the right thing, and that's the whole point.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
And that's why, I was kind of trying to get at, so my sense, and I've not been to a NICA, event, but whenever I talk to people who are involved with it, it's very clear that racing certainly is a component of it, but that really goes far beyond that. It's hard. I mean, that's why I'm kind of like, I'm trying to capture some, hint of what that is for folks so that people, who might be interested in this can get just a little sense of why NICA. So if you're on an elevator with somebody and you're having to give that 60-second, sort of elevator speech kind of thing, and somebody's like, they're got all these activities, but they've got a kid, they got a kid who's in mountain biking, or maybe they're a mountain biker themselves, and they're interested in helping or giving back in some way. And they say to you, okay, Denile, why NICA? What would you say to
Okay.
them?
NICA was they're nationwide. They offer incredible programming, incredible support. So that's why we chose NICA to develop this league under. The other thing I would say is people really this you don't even need to know anything about mountain biking. It's that that's the low hanging fruit, right? Families that mountain bike are low hanging fruit because hey, guess what? Mom and dad get to coach, which means they're not on the sidelines watching their kid run back up and down the field having a great time. They're in there too. Grandparents, aunts and uncles, whomever, community members all volunteer, whether it's to coach or just at these events. And telling people why, it's such a different why for everybody. And when you're in that moment, you really go, aha, this is good. Mostly it's that you're outside and you're having fun. The really important thing here is community. We know without a shadow of a doubt that community is the thing that allows us to have a happy and healthy lives, or as happy and healthy as possible. So having the really strong backbone of NICA and all of their experience that they brought to event planning and risk management and coach training, which is really important. That's why we chose NICA. And you have to say to people, come and experience this. That's when you're going to have that moment. Go to a local practice. Show up. You can sign a waiver. You can hang out. You can bring your child. They can do a try it out. Come to a race. Come to a teen trail corps event. Help work on the trails with these kids. If you want, come to a grid event. Find out how these young women are bonding and building self-efficacy together. We only win together. That's kind of one of our things, right?
Yeah,
We just like no human left behind. If we go forward, we go together,
that's
and
great.
that's why we're here.
That's great, and you're such a wonderful ambassador for for this program. You kind of alluded to this. You talk about trail development a little bit. I know there's like a service aspect, to this. So
Yes.
it's not just about training and racing. There's other components to this. So can you kind of, I mean, so it really seems like it's sort of aimed at developing the whole person or the whole kid as opposed to just about getting skills on the bike. So can you speak a little bit to some of those other facets of NICA?
Yeah. So um, we say racing is 1/5 of what we do, because we also offer things like Teen Trail Corps, which is our trail development program. We offer Grit, which is the Girls Riding Together program. We have something called Adventure, which is really kind of, for me, the nuts and bolts of it, because that's what most of us are going to do with our lives. We're going to go out and adventure into the wilderness together. And then the other thing we do is practice. So those are kind of the five arms of what we do. Teen Trail Corps is just the coolest thing ever. And, I don't think most people know. I would say probably a lot of people watching your podcast know, but the general public doesn't know that most trails are paid for, built, and maintained by private organizations in conjunction with landowners, whether those are municipalities or private landowners. You have to do these things. And access, we always say, is a privilege, it's not a right. So, I mean, sure, we have to have this conversation with adults. So if our children grow knowing this, they will do the work. And if they already know how to do the work, it's not intimidating. So we take our kids to speak in front of municipalities and boards that we're looking to get access and help build trails. They work with our trail stewards. They obviously, the kids, we always say they're cheap labor. There's so much fun outside helping to so from the advocacy side to the
Yeah,
actual physical maintaining and digging of trails, they're out there. All of our coaches and kids do 20 hours minimum of trail work every year. That's our goal. Kentucky, the first year we were a league, we were number 3 in the nation for trail work hours.
that's awesome.
So that should tell you about just our community in Kentucky. We're a pretty amazing the links we have here with each other in terms of trails, it's much stronger than anybody could ever imagine, and I think that's a really important key, not just for our mountain bike community, but for everybody to know because those trails are often multi-use.
Yeah,
So Vince Carmen is our teen trail corps coordinator, and he does a great job,
yeah.
a really great job.
Yeah, he's awesome guy. I love Vince. He's just
Yeah,
all around good advocate, something I think. I mean, you kind of mentioned this in terms of like going in front of like city councils or whoever it is in terms of like trying to get permission. I think so many times those folks who may not know mountain bikers kind of get this real stereotypical image of the guy who the just the shredder, the guy who wants to get air, and they have these visions of just people kind of tearing through something, and of course though there are those folks there, but we're
yeah,
a very broad community, of people, and there are a lot of really average folks who just like to get out and turn pedals, and I think how powerful. Is it breaking that image? If you put a group of kids in front of them, you all aren't just serving our community by helping to build the next generation of mountain biker or cyclists in general, but you're really kind of broadening the scope of how people see the community at large, which I think is just really awesome.
that's something that's very important, and that's important to me personally as I age. I'm not 25 years old anymore, and
You're
breaking
not.
these stereotypes. Yeah, now I know, right? It's breaking these stereotypes, but also we do that for our adults that come
Yeah,
into our program, our coaches. I have grandmothers that coach,
yeah,
and grandfathers, and they said to me, "I'm not going to be a good coach," and I go, "You're going to be an awesome coach because I don't need more really skilled mountain bikers. I need people that care about other human beings."
yeah.
And understand what it means to show up and have empathy. And and they do because they've got some experience. And so, NICA really is for everybody. KICL is for everybody. We want people to feel valued for who they are. So I tell when I recruit for my team, because I'm with Fayette County Composite, I tell people all the time, show up as who you are. That's my one requirement. Show up as who you are. That's the most important thing you can do.
That's great. Well, if it's okay with you, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and bring up your website since I think it'll help us dig into some of the current information about KICL.
Yeah.
All right. When we talked in 2021, you were really just getting started, and I think if I went back and watched the video, and I think you were highlighting there was a total of 6 teams in the state. So fast
Mhm.
forward to 2023, or at least as of what the website is reflecting, and if I counted correctly, you're now up to 15 teams, so more than double the number which you were, in the beginning of 2021. So if you would just take a few minutes and walk us through the team list and tell us a little bit about, each team, if you don't mind.
Yep. So we're hoping, our my goal this year is to grow by 2 more teams. I think that that's going to be, easily done. We really hope for rapid growth, but also we want it to be sustainable. So we don't want to onboard too many teams at once. It's a lot for those teams, but it's all are welcome. Let's get moving down the road. So Bluegrass Berms is out of Woodford, Franklin County area. Jeb Gorham is their head coach. He was with our team the first year, and boy, he like just dove right in and got it. And that second year, he was ready to run, which was awesome because that's the point. Like, let's grow our teams and our communities. So Bluegrass Firms is a really unique team. Jeb sits on the Kimba Bluegrass board with me too, and he's just the coolest guy. He um, he also has Kimba. He runs our Kimba Youth Corps, so they often work because they're the same kids, right? we work in conjunction with what we do with KICL for all the youth, teen trail course stuff. So Jeb's pretty involved in that as well. And the other thing I want to mention really quickly is Jeb is a professor at Midway University, and we partner with them to do economic impact surveys for our league, which is huge. We need that data um, to go ahead and speak to those communities to help them really grow and help people understand, where we're of value outside of the feel good stuff that we do,
Yeah.
which is the economic impact that we bring. Clark County Composite, that's over near Winchester. John Audie is the head coach there. He has been coaching with that team since its inception, and they have a lot of girls on their team, which is awesome. So does Jeb, by the way. We're always looking for more female coaches and more girls. We're actually above the national average. We're about 25%,
That's great.
with 30% being the goal for us. The national goal right now is 25%. So we're doing better. It's about 20% nationwide for girls and women to coach. So Fayette County Composite, that's my team. Mark Smith is my co-head coach. We have been around since we were with Tennessee. So we were racing back in Tennessee then, and so we're serving all Fayette County. We're at Veterans Park if anybody's ever over there. I know Jeb often uses Capitol View. LAC's open now again, so he'll be there. And John Audie does the same thing. We all kind of share trails because we're close enough by. And then Green River Composite, it's a smaller team. Matt Mills has done a great job with that team. And, it's some team, by the way, teams are anywhere from like 2 kids to, 25 kids right now. Well, actually, Marshall County has way more kids than that, but teams don't have to be, a bunch of kids and a bunch of coaches. It can be pretty small.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then let's see here. So Hardin County E-Town, that's David Haynes, his team over in E-Town. E-Town is one of the coolest places that you can hold an event. I got to tell you, that community is outrageously cool and so incredibly supportive. And BLT, which is my favorite sandwich and one of my favorite trails, is Buffalo Lake. His team over there is bonded, very purple. They wear a lot of purple, which is really cool. You can always find them at the races. But David's a really special person. He's our coach development manager, and he has taken that job seriously. We believe that the health of our league lays in the hands of our coaches. And so David's done a great job with his team, really leading the way in terms of the way that we serve our teams. David's a really great example of that. And his team, again, he has a lot of girls on his team. They've done a great job over there.
Good deal.
Madison County Composite is Heidi Mirsola Justice, and Amy Pointer is their team director. Again, great team. They've got loads of girls. I have their team. If you ever see any of our stuff and they're in the house, they're like the whole team shows up for everything that we do that's even outside of stuff. They're a great team. Heidi's a great coach. A lot of fun. So that's Richmond. It's going to be the Richmond area. Marshall County High School, that is one of our flagship teams. They were down in Tennessee. Steve was the head coach back then, before anything even, really got lifted here. And they have a huge team, and they are a school-based team. They are deeply connected to their school because they even have a booster club, which is, they are just a rare and shining example of what you can really do with a team. It's huge. It's a big program, and they have a beautiful trail over there too that you were telling me you just were at. So
yeah.
I can't encourage people enough to head over to the Land Between the Lakes area and go visit
Oh yeah.
that trail system.
Awesome place. And
Yeah,
yeah. I guess
yeah, it's beautiful.
Steve may be scaling back. He might be head coach anymore, but he certainly is still very involved with that trail system and that program. So
Well,
yeah.
the trail system, the county named after his dad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, he's still very involved. And then Meade County is again, they're a smaller team, but they have some really incredibly talented riders on their team as well. And then Louisville Sting, Jennifer Hester is the head coach of that team. They're a riot. If you ever get a chance to come to one of our events, you can't miss them. They are a riot, and they're a good team. Again, really strongly bonded, and they're in the Louisville area, so definitely going to be growing and growing and growing.
Yeah.
Northern Kentucky roots. Brian Bozeman, the head coach up there, has a really talented team, and they are big. They were in Ohio their first year because they're right on that Cincinnati border, and they came to us last year. We're so happy to have them. They have brought just such incredible, just fun. They're just a fun team. So when they're at the races, we're always looking for them for some fun. McCracken County, Derek Rothrock is the head coach there. Strong team, really strong team, large team, growing, really contributing to our league, which is always appreciated. Shelby County Composite, Kathy McClurkin runs that. Kathy is just a really compassionate human and started her league with the idea that every kid should have a chance to get on a bike. And she's done that. She serves a lot of kids of different abilities, and she does it very well. And so she sets this example for the rest of us to be able to reach outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah,
And
and as you've been going down this list, I've been thinking, okay, I'm thinking in my own mind, I'm thinking, oh, this must be their home trail system. This must be their own trail system. I'm not aware. I mean, is there a trail system in Shelby County? And if not, where do they practice?
that's a great question. So actually, there are a few of our teams that don't have trail systems right in their backyard. So short track is really popular. A lot of our coaching happens in the field when we're teaching skills before we head out to the trail. And then short track is huge. You can set up a grass track
Yeah,
anywhere. Every team does it, regardless of your trail system. So those teams that don't have a trail in their backyard, and again, that's part of the reason that we are such big advocates of trail access,
yeah,
is that and this is discussion among all the Kimba chapters, I'm sure, in addition to KICL, is that it is time to bring trails to people. We don't have to have 20 miles of trail. You can have 3 miles of trail
yeah.
and get a lot done. So yeah, Shelby County, they kind of go wherever they can. They'll spend some time in Louisville, riding. And so yeah, they just have to get
Yeah, well,
a little more
and
mobile.
I'm excited to see Shelby County on the list because I feel like, okay, this may be an inroad into trail development. So
Oh,
you
yeah,
got kids in your community who are wanting to ride, and you don't have that, you know, come on,
yeah,
it needs to work.
yeah. Yeah, and we are, and we can talk a little bit about that more, but definitely as our races develop and our events develop and our teams develop, that's the reason Teen Trail Corps exists, is we know access can be limited, and it
Yeah,
is, really important that I think anybody, and if those trails can be multi-use, all the better,
yeah,
all the better.
yeah,
And then, yeah, Warren County is Philip Schmidt is the head coach of that team, and he and his team they're a riot. They're again really strong team, big team. They show up. They're in the house.
oh
They
yeah,
are not shrinking violets. They're just a fantastic team. In Livingston County Composite, they were a new team to us last year too. They were a lot of those kids because it's right there up against that Marshall County line.
yeah,
And Livingston Trail has a really great, I mean, Livingston County has a great trail system there too.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we get lucky. We get to go ride all the trails across the state.
yeah,
And Rudy Mine Composite, they're a smaller team. They're over in that Owensboro area. And James Sargent started that team. I think Tom Fenwick is one of the head coaches now. Again, really strong team, really doing a lot of work over there in a community that is small. And they've got great trails over there, but the community just hasn't caught on quite as much. And so they're really innovators over there. They're really laying the groundwork to grow that community and give people reasons to go out and use those trails.
yeah. One thing I'm excited about, Danielle, and to see reflected in this list is that geographic diversity all around Kentucky, and then you've got actually that is starting to happen. It's probably happened in NICA before it happened any kind of an adult, series. Like Bluegrass Mountain Cup, I did an interview last week with Josh Patton,
Oh,
and
yeah, he's killing it.
oh, and that's happening, for him too. So
Yeah.
to me, it's like it's really exciting to kind of see that connection between East, Central, West, all kind of coming together, and see all these exciting places to ride. But as you mentioned, land between the lakes area, and one thing I thought was kind of interesting when we were down riding the North South Trail, there was actually the Rudy Mine Composite team came out at the same time that Marshall County came out. Like they had coordinated together, and they were
Mm,
out kind of working together. And I thought that was really cool. It's not something that you typically think about in terms of sports. Most
yeah.
sports are like siloed in terms of, well, we're doing our thing over here so that we can
Yeah.
compete against you guys. And there was really this probably this mentoring going on between this legacy, sort of team that's done this for years and years, and this newly formed team, and that's really neat to see.
It is, so again, it's such a unique experience to do this. So first of all, by the way, we really are working to move towards Eastern Kentucky too. That's one of our least served populations, and that's an area that we really want to get into because for me, that's a goal this year is to head over into Eastern Kentucky and get
Yeah,
a team up and running over there. But it is really unique and if you've ever mountain biked and it competed, especially very often you are riding with people. If you're in a small enough area, you're riding with people who are your direct competitors, or even in large areas. Growing through this sport, you will talk to a lot of people who spent time on bikes with people they competed against, getting in base miles, getting in that time because it is just a small enough community, but also you're not really, we're not running plays. So there are really no secrets. We're
right.
riding bikes. And it is important, Livingston County did a lot of work with Marshall County too last year on their way through and up because you've got to have coaches that have experience that can help you. But it's also nice because the kids get to know each other. We
Yeah,
do our adventure programming. That's why that exists. We get together every team and we just go ride bikes and have fun on trail systems that we maybe wouldn't use for racing,
yeah,
or a little harder to access. And
yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah, well,
it's super
let's go
cool.
ahead and let's lay down the gauntlet, because I mean, I'll say there's good things happening in Eastern Kentucky around trail development,
Yeah.
especially certainly Sugar Camp Mountain Trails, and now the Perry County Park in
Yes.
here in Hazard. So guys, step it up, reach out to Denile. It's
Yes.
time to get a NICA
Yeah.
team. This is it's cool stuff.
Yep, London's on my list, London,
Oh
Kentucky.
yeah,
I've talked to a
yeah,
few
yeah,
people there. I'm like, "Come on, London, Kentucky.
yeah.
You got
London.
Pulaski right there."
Yeah, no
Laurel Lake,
kidding.
my goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've got multiple, trails, one right in town, and they can go out to Laurel Lake. There's all kinds of opportunity, they need to step it up. Well, that's awesome. So obviously we can see this team growth, but do you
Mhm.
have some sense of like what the number of riders that you had a couple when you first started as opposed to what you have now? Like just the overall growth
Yeah.
in terms of.
Yep. When we started, we had about 150 riders that first year, and last year we were almost double that.
Wow.
So, yeah, and we have a lot of coaches too. We have almost like a 1 to 2 coach ratio, which is almost unheard of. Yeah, again, Kentucky has so much to be proud of. I don't think most people realize nationally where we stand, but I think it's because of our communities. They're just used to pulling together, so they do.
Yeah.
And people like to play outside here, contrary to popular belief.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to point out about this page is that every single one of these names where the coach is basically a link to their email. So if
Yes.
you are living in this one of these areas and you want to get involved either as a as a potential rider or as a volunteer? Is the way to do that to kind of contact the coach?
Yeah, so one of the easiest ways if you're interested in their team is just to reach right out to the coach,
Yeah,
and they can give you the information. If you don't have a team and you want to start, reach out to me.
yeah,
I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. My web, all of our board members or the people that you need to talk to, our emails are on our website. You can get a hold of us.
yeah. Good deal, good deal. Well, and that's kind of a nice segue. So I'm going to actually go to your management team. You've had a little bit of changes here, and of course there's emails right here. But tell us about your current makeup of your current management team.
Yeah, so we've had a little bit of turnover, but it's good. I mean, it was the way it was supposed to be. People came in for a couple of years to help lift us, and then we were able to train people, in like to shadow, so to speak, so that we're never just starting somebody fresh. One of the things we try to do with all of our positions, and by the way, these people are all volunteers,
Yeah.
is we try to train too deep so that if life happens and people can't always be there, so we try to give everybody a backup. And I always tell people we're never going to ask you for more than you can give, and we really only want people to do that one thing that they're really passionate about. Sometimes they're passionate about two things, but we never let it go further than that.
Yeah.
So David Haynes, who's
Yeah, and I have to zoom in here, Danilo, because I I've not seen, that's not, I've seen David in a helmet, but not in a purple wig. That's pretty
so
cool.
it is, and again, this goes back to the silly.
Yeah,
We as humans live really, really serious lives. There's a
yeah,
lot going on. And so we ask everybody we say we take what we do seriously, but we do not take ourselves seriously. Our kids deserve goofy, silly time. And the only way that they're going to get goofy and silly is if we are goofy and silly. So it's full permission to be goofy and silly. And dad jokes are highly encouraged. There's nothing better than like an eye roll you can hear. And I think the kids just love to hate it, and they hate to love it. So Goofy's good. It's really important. And David is a shining example. Again, to use that term, he is great. He's a shining purple example. We refer to him as Purple Dave.
yeah. I had no idea. Way to go, Dad.
Yeah, way to go, Dave. But there you go. He's setting this example for these coaches to
Yeah,
say it's okay. Let's go be goofy and let's
yeah.
let's let's do what we do, but let's not take ourselves too seriously. And that gives permission. So
Good
yeah.
deal.
So Dave is our coach development manager. He has created an incredible program for our coaches to so NICA provides a lot of training, but really we talk about setting our culture and the importance of downplaying competition, helping coaches understand what that looks like to really serve the kids as whole human beings and not just as, you know, podium chasers.
Yeah.
Um, and then Ralph Jennings has been our treasurer and chief race official for a couple of years. He's Marshall County. He's salt of the earth, which is an incredible guy. I can turn to him in any moment and get a good, honest, calm opinion when I need to. Because again, it's not all puppy dog tails and fluffy clouds. We're real people with real things go on, and so he's just kind of this shelter in the storm. I really appreciate having Ralph around. He stays right on top of things. And who else do we have? Oh, Christine Vaughn. Christine Vaughn is just a one woman rock show. She is our grit coordinator, so she really develops that programming for our girls and our female coaches. But she's kind of Jenny on the spot. She can show up and help you get done whatever you need to. She in the middle of podium, which is turns into like you got all these people at the end of the day who are tired. They've been racing. They're still in the sun, and they need their medals and jerseys, and it's got to be right. She's our go-to for that.
Yeah.
She gets that stuff organized and keeps us going. So Christine is just all around helps us with kind of whatever happens in the moment.
And
So
I know we talked about this in the first interview, but for those who may not be familiar, can you just quickly say what the GRIT acronym stands for? Just say a little bit about that program.
yeah, so grit is girls riding together. It's really meant to create equity in the sport, give young women and coaches an opportunity to bond together and to ride together. We don't just do social rides. We also offer we have something really cool called Grit Camp, Grit to Know Your Bike. So we have professional female mechanics. We get together as a group and camp and work on our bikes together. It's a great program. The funny thing about the Grit tent, though, on any given race day, you are going to find a bunch of boys under that tent too, because we do really cool stuff under that tent. So we always say it's not that we want to chase the boys away. We just want to create better male allies, helping us really understand, or helping them understand what the expectations are when we're out there together riding. And it's a really valuable program.
Yeah.
Vince Carmen, he's the head of our Teen Trail Corps, as we were talking about, and he loves to dig, and he's really great at getting other people out and digging. So in that program, I can't wait to see it grow and grow and grow because it's just going to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eric Schwaghauser was initiation by fire last year as our adventure coordinator. Kind of grabbed him at the Leaders Summit. Somebody gave me his name, and I said, "Hey, you, come here." uh, yeah, and he all bright eyed and naive went, "Okay." And so he coordinates our adventure program. We had a really fun event last year at it was at Saunders Springs,
Oh yeah.
and people were like, "What's adventure?" It is literally that. It is going into the woods and having an adventure. So when you show up for an adventure program, all the tents are there just like there would be in Pit Zone, but we have this kind of wild plan for the day. And Eric decides what it's going to be. And if you get a chance to look at our Facebook page, that adventure rate or the adventure event was so much fun. He had these donuts that they hung from strings across the tree, and the kids had to roll up and track stand and like eat the donuts. Which was so fun. You're getting hit like in the face with this, this powdered sugar donut. So adventure's really about games. How can we
Yeah.
have fun on our bikes, and how can we just bond and be community? And Eric's done a great job
That's
just
great.
getting
And
that
so as
program
far as
running.
that's concerned, is that like typically one event a year or is it more than that or?
Right now, it's one event a year, but we also, adventure is about we call it gamification.
Uh-huh.
So when you're teaching skills, it can be really boring. Ask anybody that's ever been in a field, doing with bike body position.
Yeah.
So Eric helps us create and implement these games that then our coaches can use when they're in practice to
Yeah.
not bore the kids off of their saddles.
Yeah. That's great.
So
That's
yeah.
you get pretty good participation from teams from all around the state for the adventure event as well.
Yeah, we do. I think last year was our first one, and there was some, a lot of people going like, "Wait, what is this? What are we doing?" The teams that came went, "Oh, it was so much fun!" There's a
Yeah.
creek. They were all hanging out in the creek playing, and it's just a time to cut loose and have fun. There's some structure. We usually have a larger game that's happening, some competitions,
Yeah.
but fun. It's really we do giveaways this year. Hopefully, our idea is that our adventure race every year will also be an annual Velo swap.
Yeah, and I would think that that would also potentially give the opportunity for kids who may not be uh, have spots on the podium a time to shine. Maybe they're really good at some particular skill set, and they get to have fun and excel in these games too. So
Absolutely. That's why we teach people how to work on bikes. You may not be the fastest, but you may be able to fix the bike. Or, you
yeah,
may not be the one that's going to hit the podium, but you're the one that is always there encouraging your team. Or
yeah,
you know how to have fun.
yeah,
You're taking your friends along for that ride. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, cool.
So Shane Pointer has stepped in as race director. He shadowed Steve all last year. I'm really excited and grateful to have Shane as our race director. He's again a really steady hand and can really keep people having fun, but also help people, stay focused on what they're doing. It's a being race director. You can ask Steve anytime. It is a hectic job on race day, and Shane's just a really great human and doing a wonderful job. Very concerned about the kids, making sure that when they're on that start line, they're not just about to jitter out of their clipless pedals because get they get kind of nervous. And by the way, that's something we really hope that this year we can work on is showing up to the start line not feeling so nervous and in your head. I think Shane's going to go a long way towards keeping the race running smoothly as well as helping the kids manage those expectations because
Yeah.
he's talking to him at the race line. He's right there with him. So yeah, and Shane's also a firefighter. He's been a firefighter for a long time. So it's again, at sometimes there's just this point where you're trying to manage a lot of things at once. He is really good at staying on task, and so we look for these different qualities when we're looking for people to come in and fill these roles. And then Katie Fenwick, who's our media manager, stepped in. She's a rank one media specialist, I think it's called. She's a librarian,
Okay.
and she has a specialty, the certification, and boy, is she good. And because we are a kids league, you have to be really careful with content. And Katie gets it; she understands it,
Yeah.
and that's really important to us. So really grateful to have her along too.
Cool. And then you've got this advisory committee.
Yeah. So when we formed our board in 2018, or it was a while ago, 2018, 2019, we just kind of grabbed those people we knew that could come in and join the board that would lift this project. Then, as time has gone on, you really need to find a board that has a wide breadth of experience, that understand how to really, because remember, we're a nonprofit, we're a youth development organization, but you have to be able to maintain yourself as a good functioning business. So in order to grow, in order to maintain our goals, we really are putting together an advisory committee that guides us and helps make sure that we are meeting the goals that we have set for ourselves. Because so there's the fun side of it, and the events and hanging out and riding bikes, but there's this other back end of it that is having to run your organization with a clear picture, with goals, hitting certain marks. So Steve Beckett has stepped down as league director. We co-directed for a long time, and he is now serving as an advisor for a board, and it's because of his just wealth of knowledge of all things mountain biking. Johnny Dyke was one of our founding members. He was also one of our founding donors. I have a incredible amount of respect for this man. We always said, if you'd have one conversation and he'd get at whatever it was done. There was never more. You didn't need to follow up. I love Johnny. He's a good guy and he keeps us focused. Diane Hill is actually my mom.
Oh,
She retired. Yeah, she retired. Nepotism, right? Let them volunteer.
hey.
Yeah, yep. She's retired. She's an incredibly talented administrator, and so when I'm looking at those more technical aspects, her last career position was at Northern Illinois University, working in their philanthropy department, and so we really needed a strong hand in development. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, she was bored, and I said, "Come on." Jennifer Hester, who's one of our coaches, is on our board. Jennifer really has an incredible view of the world. She's a teacher, so she helps us make sure that we're staying on track, that we're really serving the kids, and just kind of guiding us, especially in the way that we communicate and the way that because really our league is about the kids. So giving them, voice, giving them agency is important, and she helps us keep on track with that. And then James Sargent, he's just a powerhouse. He's got the Grapevine Trail over there. James is a big picture guy. He's all about those big, hairy, audacious goals that we love to set. So he asks a lot of good questions, and so that's why these people are there.
Cool. And then
Mhm.
what about race crews? So these are pretty important group of people as well, I assume.
Yeah, and again, please remember, all these people volunteer.
Yeah.
So we have to have good people that are going to show up consistently because let's face it, people are paying money for their kids to do this, and by the way, our coaches also pay money to coach,
Yeah.
and so it's we've got to give them really good experiences.
And I noticed that some of these are position open, Denile. So if you want to say a little bit about what you're looking for,
Yeah,
maybe.
thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So our race crew work our race weekends, which we have 5, and then they work our events a lot of times. So our adventure event, they'll work that. So there'll be a minimum of 6 events these people will be at this year. And again, if somebody can't make it, it's by the way, If you have a child in this league, whether it's your grandchild or your niece or nephew or your kiddo, volunteering for these core positions, our volunteers never miss their kids racing ever. It's not okay. Like so when people are like, oh, but I don't want to miss, my child, we're like, it won't happen. We've got people to cover. It's not a big deal. So I want to say that because that can really hold people back. Now our teams are expected to have volunteers at every race because we usually per race we need about 185 volunteers in addition to these people. So our teams, the parents, the community members come out. But this race crew, these people, our chief course marshals, our medical coordinators, it's a no-go without these people. When you show up, these people are working and they know what they need to do and they get it done. And I will tell you, I do not stand in their way. Whatever they need me to do, I'm there to do for them. We do need a volunteer coordinator. Troy Hearn was our volunteer coordinator. You can't have a better person standing behind that table smiling at you. So I've talked to a few people, but we do need a volunteer for that. Parking manager. That is an incredibly important role, as you can imagine. So I need a good parking manager, somebody that is, really good at understanding logistics and can work with us at each venue. They're not doing all of we have volunteers that do, are in those positions, but we've got to have that one person that understands those and is making sure that, because sometimes our race courses cross traffic.
Yeah.
And so remembering that all these people on this list work together, it's just this big ballet. Anybody that is interested in volunteering, please come volunteer. I do want to give a really special shout out to Vanessa Boyette. She's a race announcer. All of you that are going to be at any of the Bluegrass Cup series are going to get to hear her do her thing. If you've ever been to a wedding with a really bad DJ, you know how awful it can be. Or if you've ever been to a business event where you're just like, oh, these people. Vanessa is just a whiz with emceeing. I can't even begin to tell you. She's a riot. She keeps people laughing. She keeps our, volunteers going. She's always, hey, I need a volunteer over here. Go, So she's our communicator. Vanessa is our mouthpiece. And I keep telling her, quit your job, just do this professionally. She's so good. She dressed up as Hulk Hogan. She does it at her state, and she stays in character all day.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
KICL Coach Supporters. Talk about what you guys do.
Sure. So Coach Supporters, and we've got 2 more coming on this year. We'll have a total of 6 this year. We are the ones that help do the on the bike training for our coaches to get them up to speed on those skills. So we host these, they're called OTB clinics. So it's on the bike, not over the bars, clinics, and really give our coaches all the skills they need. There's a very specific way that skill progression happens. Just anybody else, if you're BICP certified or if you are PIMBIA certified, this is an addition to that. This is a NICA certification, and it really focuses on kids and the way that they learn. So these guys, this is how our coaches become coaches, and they answer all the questions they have, not just the training, but if you're starting your team and you're not sure and you don't know any other coaches, these guys are all here for you to answer questions.
Awesome. I know you're still kind of looking for location, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of talk about your races and events for the year.
Yeah. So I'm actually having a board meeting later today, and we're going to finalize. Our dates are up right now, but our locations are not finalized. And this goes back to us working with individual trails to help make sure that that the actual physical trail itself is something that we can race on or have events on. And we have a pretty long list of things that need to happen on a trail for us to be there. So we've used Veterans Park in Lexington, Kentucky, which is my hometown. BBMT over the Bo Beckett Memorial Trail over in Western Kentucky. Again, these were trail systems that were there. We have really strong relationships with the landowners and the trail alliances in those places. And the reason that this all happens is because, or those relationships are so important, because there are sometimes alterations that have to happen on the trails in order for us to be able to use them.
Yeah.
So And so we work with these. We just did a what we call a venue survey at England Idlewild, and unless you've ever done one, you get out there and you're like, oh, right. You begin to realize these different things. We like, for instance, we can't have more than 700 feet of elevation on a race loop. We can't have any spots where people can gain more than 20 miles an hour on a downhill. There are just really specific things. Certain bridge heights. Sometimes we have to put on handrails or bring in hay bales, and so sometimes you're out there with that poor trails, because we always ask the trail steward to come out with us, and they're looking at you like, are you picking my trail apart? It's like, we're not. This is a great trail. We love your trail, which is why we're here.
Yeah.
We're asking, can we mitigate these things? But also, if you can imagine, if I've got 300 kids at a race, I've also got 300 cars and their families. So we, on any given race, could have 500 to 600 people. So we have to have parking and we have to have restrooms. We bring in porta potties. But there's so many things that these venues have to meet. So as trails are developing, we've been working with trail builders and municipalities to help the ones that really want to have these races there, to help make sure that they're meeting those kinds of standards in the beginning as they're developing their trails. If you're an already existing trail, it's pretty easy to mitigate most of what we need.
Right. You said you're actively working on the location, so that's going to be announced. In terms of the race series itself, it's like August 27th through basically late October. So
Mhm.
August, September, October, basically like a 3 month period as far as the race season. When do you guys get out and start practicing? And like, like, I'm interested in like to know like what's the season length for you?
Yeah. So we are July through usually the week, and usually the race is kind of our last event. And well, not kind of, it is. And then some teams just stop. That's their last thing. Other teams, the week after, will still meet for practice and have kind of like a party or a get together, just to make sure, because not everybody's at the races. So if you don't do one thing after that, you might leave out a lot of kids on your team that aren't racing.
Yeah.
But we start in July. Practice starts in July. Usually, our first event is actually our coach retreat, which is in April. So we actually start in April with a coaches retreat, get everybody on board, and then
Is it
we
this? Is it the Digital Leader Summit, or is that something different?
well, so we used to do a leaders summit, and it's great content and it's required content. It's CEUs for coaches. It's
Okay.
really, really important if you are a new coach. So everybody's required to do this. What happened was NICA used to have these leaders summits, but you can imagine, after you've been to a leaders summit a few times, you need new content, right? You
Yeah.
need other things. So NICA has wisely put a leaders summit online now, and they have several sessions so that people can get through those. We are going to be holding our first ever coaches retreat this year,
Okay.
and it is going to look a little different. It's going to have content that is really going to be quite helpful to coaches that are not only new, but coaches that have been with us for a while. And we know this. We need time together as a group. So that coaches summit is a retreat, will happen in the last weekend of April. I think the 29th and the 30th in E-Town. It's going to be in E-Town this year. Again, fantastic community. So, and it's nice. It's right kind of in the middle of the state, so it makes it a pretty easy draw for most people.
Yeah.
Then we start registration. Usually starts for coaches in March, student athletes in April. Usually that's when what we it's called our pit zone. It's our digital registration platform. That'll open up. Yeah, and I think there's our login. So it's closed now. So if coaches go to log in, they won't be able to get in there, or you can't do anything in there. But that'll start opening up in March and April. Uh, and then I think this year our adventure event is, or our grid event's going to be in July. We usually try to do that right at the beginning of the season for our grit camp. And I believe this year again, we held it last year at a Girl Scout camp on the Kentucky border. So it's actually technically in Indiana. Was a great facility. So I think we're going to go back there again. And really, it's important to know that, again, this is really bonding time for these girls. And what happens is a lot of these girls will come to this and they're new to the league and they make friends instantly. And it really helps kind of they're so nice to each other. I can't even tell you. It's just the coolest thing in that moment to watch those girls and those coaches bond. So that grit camp will happen in July. I can't remember dates for that right now, but we'll have all of that up
Okay.
pretty soon.
And then you mentioned the adventurous thing. So there's this wild goose.
Yeah, that's our wild goose. So that's going to be August 12th, I believe. We
Yep.
have it at Pulaski County, we think.
Okay.
I'm waiting again. I'm meeting with Eric Schweighauser today, our adventure coordinator, during our board meeting, and we'll kind of finalize that. We looked at Big Hollow as well; could be a really cool place. So I always tell people our venues can change because something can happen, and we got to like move it over, or they might have something going on. But the intention this year is to do it at Pulaski. We actually have some other opportunities too that we may have some other things coming up. I can't say anything right now, but
Sure. Well, and in terms of in the know, we kind of staying up on things. You do have I guess, a Facebook group or page rather,
yeah.
and then also an Instagram page, but more to the point, you have this newsletter that you can
Yes.
sign up for. And so,
Yeah.
how often do you point to put out a newsletter with information?
Right. That is a monthly newsletter.
Okay.
And we actually have two newsletters. We have Single Track Times, which goes to everybody. So if you register as a coach or as a student athlete, a parent of a student athlete, you're going to automatically be sent those newsletters. But really, it's I always tell people if you really want to know what's going on, like this is the place to look. If you're interested as a volunteer, sign up for that newsletter because yeah, everything is on
Good
there.
deal.
And then we also have a coaches newsletter that David Haynes creates monthly for our coaches.
Good deal. And last but certainly not least, I always like to give. I know you've got sponsors on here, so I always like to give people an opportunity to talk about their sponsors. There's obviously a financial aspect to this work, so you can't do this without your sponsors. So tell us about the KICL sponsors.
Sure. So yeah, there's money is a real thing. It is every race is about $5,000 for us. Every event really is about $5,000. If you think that because we bring in EMTs, obviously I was saying we have to have porta potties; those are not cheap. Other things, right? We have to feed people, and they have insurance, and so these are all real things. So our sponsors have been incredibly generous year after year. These are our local sponsors on here. It's amazing to me how many cities are willing to chip in and really
Yeah.
help out. Our Kimba chapters are just there constantly. Our bicycle stores, really, and it's funny because sponsors aren't always as like they're not always just giving money, right? For instance, I will tell you, Shellers allows us to store our trailers being stored on their property right now so that we don't have to pay a monthly fee to store it somewhere because those things are 20 feet long. They don't fit in driveways that well.
Yeah.
Other people like Middletown Cycling, they gave us the money to buy our timing system, but they show up as neutral support at every race. So, just the amount of support because people want to see the kids out there doing stuff. So,
Yeah.
we're really grateful to our local sponsors, and then we have very large sponsors. Our lead sponsors, Trek Bicycles, is all in, 100% all in. They have given us money. Their local Trek stores, so Trek has direct owned stores now. Those stores are given money to also support teams and events. So they've been incredibly helpful. All the bicycle manufacturers that are on here, I know Giant, Trek, they all offer discounts, really good discounts to people that are coaches and riders. All these companies, by the way, if you're a coach or a volunteer on our core staff, there are additional professional discounts that you're given. So there are industry discounts, not just in cycling. Like there's outdoor industry discounts that you are eligible for, and
Nice.
it's a dang good reason to help volunteer because
Yeah.
there's some good discounts.
Yeah.
If you're a gearhead. But all of these companies come through from financial to like SRAM and Shimano provide our snow fencing that we really have to have, and those are expensive purchases. So
Yeah.
yeah, all of these people, we couldn't. I mean, my goodness, it's humbling. It's humbling, and so you can see. I mean, it's everybody.
Wow.
You know, industry wide. Industry wide, there are a lot of great people that come in and help us.
Yeah, a lot of big names on this list, and a lot of
There are.
regional
There
support as
are.
well. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and our regional, that's really where I'm going to be focusing my efforts this year. You know, we really have to find sustaining donors. You know, people that are there for us every season. We're really focusing our grants this year. You know, looking for those grants that allow us to really fund our programming. And then sometimes we need equipment. You know, there are big purchases that we have to make. We're pretty close to being at the end of our big purchases at this point. But like I've got to have my trailer wrapped. And we really want this like great thing that says like KICL rolling across the state, or it's just this rolling billboard. So, you know, like right now I'm gonna go out and find somebody to sponsor that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So things like that. We are
Yeah.
incredibly grateful. It's not forgotten.
Well, good deal. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here and just ask you: is there anything that I haven't already asked you about that you want to share with the Kentucky cycling audience?
So one of the things I want to share is that the Bluegrass Cycling Club is a club over here in the Fayette County area. They're Franklin, Woodford. They are really setting this precedent that I've never seen before. They provide funding for our teams, several of our teams through their Pedaling for a Purpose program. They've also given you know, incredible grants to teams that apply for equipment needs, things like that. It is really rare when I meet with the national conference, which I do once a year. They are blown away by the Bluegrass Cycling Club, and I can't. It is so innovative. It's because it's like, okay, let's get kids on bikes, let's get families on bikes.
Yeah.
So what an incredible use of their funding and their talent. A lot of our volunteers come from the Bluegrass Cycling Club. So, you know, I think, again, this goes back to Kentucky. It's a really incredible place, and so proud. To me, it speaks to what it means to be in Kentucky doing this. I don't know that you'd find things like that very many other places.
Yeah.
So, regardless of how big their bike culture is, we got a good group. I guess I really want people to understand that it's about so much more than mountain biking. We are really about youth development, about creating riders that can do this for a lifetime. So many sports, and I played ball sports and ran track, and I loved it. But you know, you got to try out for those things, and you got to sit on the bench sometimes. And there are no benches or tryouts for what we do. Everybody comes in. Coaches coach regardless of ability. Same thing with our riders. Whatever we need to do, we're going to do to get you out there riding with us. But it really is about giving kids and families an opportunity to play together. And if you have those experiences and you take down those barriers, and we start to build trails and places people can get to easily, we're just creating healthier communities. And we know that if we are physically healthier, we tend to be mentally happier and healthier. Community is the whole goal. I think Kentucky deserves it. I think we deserve amazing trails with wonderful opportunities. You know, too often I think Kentucky gets this kind of stigmatized idea, right? And so I love the people here. I love the state, and I think that this, for me, was a way to give back for all it's given me.
Awesome. Well, Denile, thank you so much for being a guest on the Kentucky Cycling Connection series, and really for all that you do, not only for cycling, you know, broadly, but to get more kids on bikes.
Well, I appreciate it that, you know, I don't know that you hear this very often, but thank you, because the consistency you created with that calendar that you have is huge for those of us managing these events, really, because I can go look at one calendar and make sure that we're not overlapping, and it's a great communication tool, and so is this. So thank you.
You're certainly welcome. Thank you.
As always, we hope you found this content useful. If you did, please like the video and consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks.